Welcome to NACME's podcast, Innovating Forward, where we talk to inspiring people and ask, hey, what makes you tick? Join me, Christopher Greaves,
and me, Emely Evangelista,
for thoughtful conversations with visionary leaders whose fingers are firmly on the pulse of technology, business, and innovation. We hope that each of our chats leaves you with some practical wisdom that makes your life better and brings you a step or two closer to realizing your dreams.
Hello, welcome to Innovating Forward, a NACME Leaders Podcast. I have the pleasure of sitting here with Dr. Elise Grace. Just a little bit about Dr. Elise Grace before we kick off our interview. Dr. Elise Grace is the Global Vaccines Business Operations Director at Merck Company, where she oversees operations for global marketing franchises. Her current role focuses on standardizing marketing processes, developing digital tools, and enhancing operational efficiency. Previously, she was the Strategic Alliances Director, supporting institutional business and localization operations. Dr. Grace brings experience in supply chain management, external manufacturing, vaccine manufacturing, technology transfer, project management, and various roles within Merck's manufacturing division. She was also part of Ervivo Vaccine Technical Product Transfer Acceleration Team. Dr. Grace holds a doctorate in engineering and engineering management, an MBA in marketing, and a bachelor in science in mechanical engineering. And she also was a NACME Vanguard Scholar at Drexel University. She actively participates in employee resource groups and holds leadership roles in organizations like LEAD and NACME. Passionate about talent development, she often mentors others. In her free time, she enjoys traveling, spending time with family, and exercising. While also serving as the NACME board liaison for Merck Company, she received the Alumna of the Year award in 2021. She is also a certified supply chains professional. Her international missions work includes projects in South Africa and Nicaragua. As a Brooklyn native, she now resides in Philadelphia. Welcome, Dr. Grace. It's a pleasure to be sitting here with you. How are you today?
Hi, Emily. Thank you. No other place I'd rather be than with NACME. And you could call me Elise or Dr. Grace, whatever's more comfortable while we're talking.
Okay, so I'll start off with Elise. Elise, I'm also Brooklyn native, so I just wanted to share that. So I love hearing about successful people from Brooklyn. I'm always rooting for people from my neighborhood. But wow, I just want to congratulate you on all your accomplishments. Love seeing successful Black women in the field of engineering and STEM. And I just want to start off from the beginning before getting into the field of engineering. What did you think it meant to be an engineer?
I had no clue what engineers did. I didn't really hear about the discipline a lot until I went to high school. I always thought when you hear engineering, people fixing things or computer engineering or design building, but I had no clue about the many different disciplines in engineering at the time. So when I was younger, it's like teacher, lawyer, doctor, those are the big three. And now, you hear more about STEM and STEAM as well. So again, like I said, it was very limited knowledge. It was fixing things, computers, and designing bridges and buildings.
Oftentimes, at least growing up, when I heard engineering, I was thinking like MTA, train conductors. That's really what I personally associated with engineers growing up in New York. But how did you even get into STEM? Was it something you've always had an interest in, something you excelled at in school, or it was really something you pushed for yourself?
No, so I thought I wanted to be a teacher when I was growing up, right? Like I said, you had your teaching, medicine, or law, right? And I went to Brooklyn Tech High School. Michelle also went there. Shout out to the Brooklyn Tech engineers. Hey, Michelle, the CEO of NACME. But that's when I was really introduced to the many different disciplines of engineering. And so during our sophomore year, we have to pick a major before we go into our junior, senior year. And they have many different engineering majors. They had architecture, they had a media major, but I had no choice, right? Unless I wanted to be another major besides engineering. It was mechanical engineering, civil, electrical engineering. And I picked mechanical because in my freshman and sophomore year, I would see people driving go-karts in the hallway of the first floor. And I'd be like, how are you doing that? And they're like, we're the mechanical engineering major. This is our senior design project. And so after that, I knew I wanted to, this is the only reason why I picked it, was because I could build a go-kart and drive around the hallway in school. I really didn't have a clear understanding of mechanical engineering at the time. But seeing students drive around in a go-kart for their senior design project was enough marketing for me to select that major.
AKA engineering is cool. For our listeners who don't really know Brooklyn Tech High School, Brooklyn Tech is one of the specialized high schools in New York, specializes in STEM, and it's a really big school. That's why you're able to drive go-karts in the school. But that's really cool. I think that would inspire me to be a mechanical engineer. Real life Mario Kart. Growing up, while we're talking about your childhood, what did you envision your future to be like? You mentioned envisioning yourself as a teacher. Like, what kind of pushed that vision to be a teacher? Is it that you wanted to inspire others, mentor others?
To be honest, I don't remember. I don't know what the driver was. I think if you would ask any fourth or fifth grader what they wanted to be, let's set the context, right? So I grew up in the 80s, 90s, like that was like my early childhood, went to high school in 94. We did not have access to so much information at our fingertips. So the answer today to a fourth or fifth grader might be a lot different just because they can Google it. We really had to do research, or we had to know somebody in that field. And so for me, I was just like, oh, I'll be a teacher. I like people. I like being around people. I still do now like the part of helping others. I think I'm really passionate about helping others. And so that may have been a driver for me to want to be a teacher, but it was more so just not knowing all of the different fields that were out there. And it was something that I was familiar with. You were in school every day. You saw what teachers did every day. And so for me, that was the driver.
You mentioned that in high school, you had to pick a major, right? You decided to go with mechanical engineering because of go-karts. Going into college, it manifested more, becoming an engineer. Did you ever have any doubts, like going into college, or did you feel like your high school really prepared you? Or did you get like a kind of a reality check? Because I know a lot of times when students graduate from high school and then decide to pursue engineering, they're like, whoa, this is overwhelming, especially with prerequisite classes and things like that. How was your experience?
I think Brooklyn Tech prepared me fairly well. I also feel that just being a NACME scholar also helped keep me in the field, because it's give up a full scholarship and pick another major because it's easier, or stay in this major, continue with your scholarship, and potentially be able to change the world, right? And when I say change the world, I just mean in the area of STEM, it's a lot of opportunity. And so being a part of the NACME Scholar Program and having friends that were also going through the same thing I was going through really helped to manifest that engineering piece. And I stayed with mechanical engineering because it was the broad engineering major, in my opinion. So it wasn't so specialized as a computer or electrical engineer or a civil engineer. I felt like I could do more with a mechanical engineering degree than some of my other cohort members. And the other good thing about Drexel is that they have a co-op program. So you're able to get out into the field fairly early, right after your freshman year or right after your sophomore year, to do a co-op and to get hands-on experience in your field. And so that was another thing that was interesting and that helped keep me interested, as well as hearing about other students who didn't really like the work they were doing, and they weren't getting paid as much as the engineering majors. And so in college, more money is better, right? To any college student. So all of the engineering majors are like, yeah, see, we told you should come over to this side. We can't hang out as much, but we're making more money on our co-ops. And so I think all of that together is the perfect storm and motivation for a student to stay in engineering. And it was interesting, right? I never really loved to write. I like to read, but I don't want to read and have to write about it, right? I just like to read for enjoyment. And so I rather do math problems and science problems all day. I'd rather be able to put my hands on something to figure it out. And so I genuinely just started to love the major after a while.
That was really interesting, especially that co-op program. Sounds like you gained some experience in the field. Can you speak a little bit more about that? What type of internships did you hold? Was there one that you had that was really significant during your time at Drexel?
Yes. So the co-op program, for students who may not be familiar with it, it's built into your curriculum. And so the way Drexel works, you can do 3 co-ops and stay for 5 years. You can do 2 co-ops and finish your degree in 4 years. I opted for the 3 co-ops in 5 years. And essentially you work for 6 months and then you go to school for 6 months. And so for 6 months, it's basically like applying for an internship. So you look at the job board, you apply for the roles, you interview for roles. And my first co-op was at a company called Unisys. And in that role, I put together mainframe computers and did testing on different types of epoxy glue and heat transfer materials. Looking back on it, I didn't really learn a lot, but it was hands-on. It was fun. There were other co-ops there. My second co-op was more meaningful. I worked at McNeil Healthcare, which was a company under Johnson & Johnson, and I worked in their liquid manufacturing suite. So we made children's Tylenol and Motrin. And so that was my first introduction to manufacturing and SOPs, which are standard operated procedures and batch records and things like that. And so that was really interesting. Again, I wasn't sitting at a desk all day. I was able to watch how they make the product, see all the other things that went into it in terms of material handling and inventory management and some of the quality systems that were involved. And in my third co-op, my senior year, right before my senior year, was at Merck. And I worked as a project manager, almost, so site facilities engineering. And so we managed projects going on at one of our manufacturing sites. So whether it was installation of fire suppression systems, expansion of some of our HVAC systems. While I wasn't hands-on doing the work, I was able to see what project management looked like and what the application of some of those things looked like in the real world. And so Merck, obviously, the McNeil co-op was the most significant. When I was at Merck, I received the full-time offer before I left. So I went into my senior year having a job, which was really good. So I didn't have to stress about looking for a job. And so just one, being there, Merck having a really good program about being intentional about recruiting interns and co-ops during the summer while they're there. They have what we call a super day. And so that was just a really good thing for me to be able to participate in, just interviewing for different roles and ultimately picking the role that I felt I would be most successful in.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool, honestly. You also mentioned earlier having a full ride. As I mentioned in your bio, you are a Vanguard Scholar, which is one of the highest awards we have at NACME, which basically means that we cover your entire tuition. How did that impact your trajectory? How did being a NACME Scholar help you as a student? Did it relieve some pressures? I know for me, I personally, a really big pressure as a student was, how am I going to support myself throughout college, right? I had bills to pay, I had to live, I had to eat, every other college student. How did being a NACME Scholar help you? Did it allow you to focus on your studies? How did it relieve some of that stress?
I mean, obviously the financial support is a no-brainer, right? You don't have the stress of thinking about how is this class going to get paid for, my housing, because NACME paid for housing as well, except for co-op, right? As long as you were enrolled in school, it was paid for. But I think, like I said, outside of the financial piece, just the network of NACME students and alumni, I'd say was what was the most sustaining piece for me. At Drexel, in my class alone, there may have been 10 to 12 of us that were a part of NACME. And then across our cohort, we had other scholars that were at Temple. We had other scholars at Texas A&M, NJIT. And so just having, again, that sense of community and that sense of family in college, aside from the money, having your people, I'll say, is something that is really good. You don't feel like you are alone. You've had people who are going through the same things that you were going through in terms of the stresses about with studying and passing exams because you needed a certain GPA to keep your scholarship. So you always had a study partner, right? You always had a study group. Just the overall NACME support system far outweighed the financial support, right? Because I could have a full ride, but if I felt like I was on the island, I think sometimes that mental piece can be a lot worse than thinking about how you're going to pay for something if you feel like you're alone and you don't have a support system or, a family there with you.
The community is very important in college. A lot of people stress the academic part of college, but I think finding your community and people you really connect with and keep you motivated at college is already hard enough being a student. It's sometimes hard to find that balance, but when you do find it, it's a very beautiful thing. And how has community been important to you as a NACME alum?
So my college roommate, she was a NACME scholar. we're still friends. I'm her son's godmother. So here we go. I talk to a lot of people that I went to school with that are NACME scholars. And I think once you've all been through a certain journey together, there's just that one thing that you always come back to. And so for me, that's why it's so easy for me to say yes. Don't get any ideas, Michelle or Chris. Right? It's like family, but it's just one of those things where when there's an organization that really, if you think about the organization not being present in your life, right? Where would I be? So I probably would not have gone to Drexel. I probably might not be an engineer. Like, I don't know. I can't tell you. But because I had that support, I had the money, I had the community, it sustained me. So to not have it, I can't even give you like what that picture looks like. And so that's why I always feel like NACME will always be home and a safe space, and anything I can do to help NACME and the students or fellow scholars who have moved on, it's always going to be an easy yes.
So you heard that, a fellow alum listening. Don't say no to NACME. Don't say no to NACME. Now, what are some things that you look forward to as an alum? Even like now to this day, do you have like reunions with your fellow alum?
I don't have reunions. I think I've been asked to work with you, Emely, just to help pull in some more alumni. I actually have a call with an old coworker who moved on to another company to talk about NACME, because she reached out after I posted on Facebook for people. So I just look forward to engaging with the students and sharing stories and networking with them, mentoring and coaching them. So we have 4 interns that will be working at Merck this summer. One of them started Monday. I'm meeting with her tomorrow to just continuing to sow into the pipeline to continue to feed the NACME soil.
Giving back is really important, especially if it had such an impact on you as an undergrad. You can only imagine what you can do for somebody else.
The junior high school I went to, the motto was, to whom much is given, much is required. And so that's kind of how I think about sending the elevator back down and to help feed that soil that was so instrumental in my development.
Yeah, even in your bio, it shows that you love to give back. So that's always a really great trait to have, throwing the rope down in a way. Just diving back into your career a little bit and your accomplishments. What inspired you or drove you to pursue your PhD? There's a really low number of Black women who hold a PhD, who hold the doctorates, and then going from late 90s in college to even now, you don't really see a lot of Black women in STEM. The field is very white, male dominated. So what A, inspired you, B, kept you going to pursue that?
Full transparency, I was bored. So I love learning. I love to continue to develop. They say if you're not growing, you're dying. And so I was at a point in my career where I felt like I wanted to do something more than what I was currently doing. Something not only that could help me at my current corporation, but also something that could help me if I wanted to step out and do something on my own for more credibility. And I think full transparency, again, is people of color, Black, brown, yellow. We always need to do a little bit more, right, to be given the same opportunities as some of our peers. And so my mother always said that once you have your education, no one can take it away from you, right? That's that one thing that you have. And so I don't want another master's. What is it that I want to do? I thought I wanted to go into consulting, like at a McKinsey or a Deloitte. And I was actually ending my assignment in Germany, having a conversation with a close friend and peer mentor, right? Me and her always bounce ideas off of each other. And she was just completing her first year of her Doctor of Engineering degree. A DEng is a little bit different than a PhD. It's more applied than research. And so the program she was in was really developed and geared towards working professionals who had a certain amount of experience in engineering, a certain amount of education, and also work experience. And so I read about the program. I did a few open sessions that they had online, and it was, hey, it's a cohort-based program. It's going to be fast-paced. Once you're in, it's no, hey, I need to stop. So make sure you're fully committed to 12 to 18 months of classes on weekends. Like your weekend days, you will have no weekends. And then you'll have a guided counselor and advisor to write what we call a praxis. So it's just as long as a dissertation, but like I said, it's more applied. And so I applied, and I didn't tell anyone I applied because I said, if I told people I applied, they'd ask if I got in, and then I'd have to go. So I got in, and I thought about it for a few weeks, and I said, you know what? I don't have anything to lose. And I decided to go for it. And so I did it. I will say it was the hardest decision, the hardest thing I've ever done outside of going to college for my undergrad, because I'm working full time and I have this commitment that I made to myself that I would complete this program. And it was hard, but I owed it to myself to, once I start something, except for books, because I have 4 books I'm reading. Once I start something, I try to finish it. And so it was the hardest 2.5 years of my adult life. I think I cried every day writing my praxis, especially chapter 2, that lit review. I thought I had it together and I didn't. When you start writing, you're like, I need more articles. I need more. And so it wasn't easy, but it was definitely worth it.
My mom always used to say, anything worth having is hard to obtain.
Yeah.
Congratulations. It's not easy getting that. So I'm going to congratulate you every time. So also going back to your career, how did getting your doctorate really push your career, or did you feel like it was just an addition, or how did you get to becoming the Global Vaccines Business Operations Director at a company like Merck Company?
So I would say at a company like Merck, we have about 63,000 people. There are a lot of doctors. We have old MD people who used to practice medicine. We have doctors or research people who work in our research laboratory. So I wouldn't say that it changed the trajectory of my career. It's another credential, yes, that sets me apart, but it's not a game changer at my company just because of the type of work that we do. In terms of becoming the Global Vaccines Business Operations Lead, that was a role that I stepped into by way of an organizational change. And so currently right now, not in the technical space, I wanted to learn a different part of the business. So I went from our Merck manufacturing division, moved over into our global human health division at the end of 2020. I just wanted to learn how we generate our revenue. So I understood the make part. Right, I understood manufacturing end to end, had various roles in that field. I wanted to learn the marketing side, the business side. How are we setting our strategy for our medicines? How are we promoting? How are we marketing? And so we did an organizational change, and my manager came to me and said, I know you're doing this global institutional business lead work. You're doing a phenomenal job, but we're restructuring the organization. You can continue to do what you're doing, or here are some of the new roles that we'll have. And business operations sounded interesting to me. We're still a year and a half later fully defining what that is. We tackled a lot of low-hanging fruit last year in terms of business process optimization across some of our franchises, enabling some processes to have things happen digitally. And we're still overall defining what end-to-end what that business operations looks like for global vaccines in 2025 and 2026. But it was a role that I decided to take once I was in this new organization after doing my old role. And I'm learning a different part of the business, which I think is important. Like I'm no longer a one-trick pony. Is that what they call it? Is that what the old timers say?
I think so. No, that's really cool. What were some growing pains you experienced? Some of the biggest lessons you've learned from right after grad, from going to the co-op program to where you are now?
There's definitely a shift between college and full-time work. There's no homework. There's no studying. You are required to be somewhere for at least 8 hours a day, depending on what you decide to do. You are learning something new that, depending on where you work, that's not in a textbook. You're meeting with new people. Nobody cares about your feelings. Everybody's at a different age. Everyone looks different. If you're a STEM, sometimes you're the only one or one of a few in the room. And so it's a major shift of culture for you, leaving college and starting your earlier career. And so that can manifest itself into a lack of confidence, into imposter syndrome, feeling like, why am I in this room? How am I in this room? I'm not supposed to be in this room with all these smart people. Now you are a big fish in a big sea. You probably left college. You were a big fish in the little sea. Now you're a big fish in all the oceans put together. And so you're really trying to find your way. But again, just like you did do in college, find your people, find your community, join the employee business resource groups, those affinity groups that really create that sense of community for you. Find mentors. Mentors are really important in terms of guiding you, somebody that you can trust to bounce ideas off of, somebody who's going to give you the honest truth about how they view you. Ask questions, be curious. Don't be afraid to fail. A lot of times you'll hear this term, failing forward. Again, as long as it's not catastrophic and you're not killing anyone, right? There's always a way to recover from a failure and to learn from it. And I think a lot of companies will give you space to do that. Learn from things and move on. Don't be afraid to take on a new project or a new assignment. Don't be afraid to experiment within reason, with facts and with data. But it's now nobody's giving you, these are the classes you need to graduate. It's really up to you to map your career and to figure out what it is that you want to do next and how you're going to get there. So I think that's why the mentors and the community is important, because they can help inform you, help connect you with other people, give you guidance. There's no one roadmap that the same two people can follow, right? Everybody's career path is going to be different. So that's why it's important to have that community to get stories and learn from others.
Yeah, it's a really big part of it. You got to explore your options. Can't really put all your eggs in one basket. I feel like in undergrad, and especially right after graduation too, you never know where your degree or even something as simple as your charisma can lead you. I also want to end off on a really positive note, just some advice to students that are unsure of where to go. Maybe they're still in their undergrad, maybe they're doing their master's or just graduated. I know class of 2024 just graduated, and there might be some listening. So what are some words of advice that you can give them just from all your experience?
I think one of the biggest things is know yourself. And so when I say know yourself, whenever I meet with a mentee and they're like, I don't know what I want to do next, or I have to meet with this person and I don't know what to talk about, at the very least, and it's always going to change, right? I would say know yourself and write it down in pencil because it's going to change. At this particular time, what is it that you want to learn right now? And what do you like doing? You should be able to articulate that. Some people could ask me today, what do you want to do in 10 years or 5 years? I don't know, because the world is changing so quickly that the role that I might have my eyes on may not exist anymore. Or two, it may be a role that's not created yet that I may want to do. But I do know what Elise is good at. I do know what I want to learn right now. And I do know what I like doing. And I know what you don't like to do, right? So 21 years in a company, I know what jobs I do not want. Don't even ask me to do those, right? Early on in your career, you don't know that yet. So explore. But know yourself, write it down on paper and pencil, because it will change in terms of what you're good at, what you want to learn at this time, and what you like doing. Again, be curious and ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Most people want to help other people. Don't be afraid to reach out to someone that you don't know just to connect with them. People love to talk about themselves. And so have this is who I am, and then let them do all the talking. They'll be more than happy to talk for an hour, and then you can figure out what to ask them. So don't be nervous about, I don't know what I'm going to talk about, and always have an ask, right? So when I meet with mentors or sponsors, I always have an ask. So introduce me to a person in this department, or help me get X role that I might be interested in, or who do you think I should talk to about this role that I might be interested in? So there's a lot. It seems like there's an ocean to boil, but it is. But I think if you attack it in a strategic way and you have the right mentors in place, and you are also very intentional about your career mapping early on, understanding how your business works and where you fit in, it's manageable. It's not easy, but it's manageable.
Yeah, don't let social anxiety get the best of you, basically. I feel like especially, it's really intimidating, I feel like, as a recent grad to ask for a mentor, or especially if you're not as outgoing or you're not as social, it does get a little nerve-wracking just to be like, hey, let's connect sometimes, because you're like, I don't know what to ask.
I tell people this all the time. I've never asked anyone directly to be my mentor. I just keep putting time on their calendar. But I will say, make sure you have that ask. Make sure that anytime somebody tells you to do something, that you do it and follow up. Like, I had a vice president early on in my career that I met with, and she mentioned this book to me. And I was like, all right, I'll get this book. And I'm the don't finish a book queen unless I have to finish a book. Early on in the book, there was a few things that I thought were like really thought-provoking. And I just reached out to her like, hey, this book was great. I really like when they talked about this. And then she suggested that we connect for lunch to talk about it. So in that case, that was permission for me to continue to meet with her. But make sure you don't have to outwardly ask somebody, will you be my mentor? Continue to meet with them with an agenda and be mindful of their time. If they're at a really high level, maybe quarterly is a good cadence. If it's someone you have more access to, catching up for lunch and coffee is a really good way to get connected. But there's no permission slip for somebody to be your mentor.
Yeah, that's also very true. This is my last question, just to wrap up the interview. How do you bring your authentic self to work? Like, how do you represent and honor your roots on a day-to-day basis? I know you're really big on mentoring, and you're very big on throwing that rope down to help others. But what are other aspects of yourself that you make sure to highlight on your day-to-day basis with your position and your role?
For me, Merck gives me the space to allow me to still be who I am to my core. We are a people-driven company that cares about their people. But I found that I'm more willing to be more authentic, and I'll explain that briefly, than I was early on in my career, because I'm just a lot more comfortable. I've defined myself in a certain space. I've proven myself in certain spaces. And so I feel like I can be a little bit more authentic. I'm not Elise that you'll see on vacation. And I think that's within reason, right? There's a difference between authenticity and professionalism. I like to keep them separate because you have to understand the culture at your company, that even within your company, within your department, the culture may be different, and department to department, the cultures can be different. Read the room. You know what's professional and what's not, but I'm still going to be Elise. I'm still outgoing. I still care about people. I'm still going to show up for my community. When I say my community, I'm a part of the League of Employees of African Descent. I'm a part of the Merck Women's Network. I'm a part of the interfaith organizations. And so I have space to be me, but I'm also not acting like I'm on a girls' trip. To me, that's not being authentic. Like, you just have to read the room. And so I think there's a fine line in terms of that. And I think understanding the culture is the most important thing. But I definitely feel that in 95% of the spaces I'm in at Merck, because I haven't hung out with the CEO and his executive team yet, I can be myself.
That's really great advice. There's a time and a place for everything, of course. Yeah, thank you so much once again for meeting with us. Elise, you've had so much insightful advice. I think everyone has something to learn from this interview. Once again, congratulations on all your accomplishments. And as Elise mentioned before to all our listeners, if you are a NACME alum, connect with our alumni network again. We would love to hear more from you all. Love to see you guys in Houston, because we are having our gala coming up October 17th through the 19th in Houston, Texas. Follow us on all social media platforms. Subscribe if you enjoyed what you listened to today. Make sure you leave all 5 stars at whatever platform you're on. Share it with your network. Elise, you have any comments as a 2021 Alumna of the Year to the audience?
I'd say take up space in any room that you're in. If it doesn't feel right to your core, then take some time to really think about why you were in that room. Be yourself. You are enough. Like anything that, or any problem or anything that you are set out to do, I truly believe that you already have what it is that you need to accomplish that task in you, or else you wouldn't have that task. And just be you and be you authentically, right? It's a cold world out here, but I think there's a you for a reason, and try to find what that is and know your why. Know what hill you're willing to die on. Every battle isn't a battle you need to fight. I know what swords I'm willing to fall on, and I know what I'm ready to walk away from. And I think understanding that really makes your life a lot less stressful.
Yeah, I think those are great words. So thank you everyone once again for tuning in and listening to Innovating Forward, a NACME Leaders Podcast. I hope to hear or see you all in the next episode. And make sure, like I said, subscribe, share.
Emely and the rest of the NACME family and crew, just thank you for having me as a guest on your new podcast, and I look forward to many more yeses.
If you enjoyed this episode and would like to see more from us, please like, subscribe, and don't forget to follow NACME on Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Visit us at nacme.org to learn more about corporate partnership opportunities and NACME programs.